cream of the crop. Nobody does it better.
Hey, but you are so money and you don't even know it.
I understood that reference.
Morning, Mr. Hammond.
Your mission,
should you accept it, steal, destroy, shadow, disappear.
assemble the team.
And here we go.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Freewheeling Fridays. Yeah, this is a show where we introduce you to some of the best indie creators in all the world. We take questions from you, and we also talk about some things that may or may not be relevant to pop culture. Sorry, I'm getting notifications from all realms here. But I'm your host, Ryan of Van Dyke Quote Channel. Thanks so much for being a part of this show. And our guest on this episode is someone who's going to introduce us to a genre that's taking a bit of a back seat. Maybe it's been forgotten. Maybe it's lost somewhere in translation in another realm of the multiverse. I don't know. But if you want someone, I should say, to introduce you to the genre that is sword and sorcery, or, Conan the Barbarian or the Samaritan, as he was originally known by the creator of that character, which in this case is Robert E. Howard. Please welcome the man himself. Grayson Sullivan is here with us, best-selling author. How you doing, Grayson?
Hardly best-selling, but I'm doing wonderful. How about you, Ryan?
We're fine. We're all fine here. Now, thank you. How are you? Anyway, there's a quote from the 1970s that'll keep your brains going for a while.
That's right. One of my favorites, by the way.
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing a Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope quote-along on Saturday night, April the 12th, with our good friend Adina Mignona of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. It'll be on my channel, which is Van Dyke Quote Channel, which you can see right here. You can follow us along there. It's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so feel free to tune in for that. I think you're going to enjoy that, because Star Wars has only been around for about 50 years, and we'd like to celebrate the good stuff about it. So why not? Why the frack not? With that being said, Grayson, what are some of your favorite books, past or present?
Wow, man. That's a tough question, because picking favorites is always hard for me. Man, you just jumped right for the throat, man. You had no mercy. Yeah, I think some of my favorite books are definitely The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. They have to be up there. The Chronicles of Narnia is up there for sure. I really love, there was this wonderful book, one of the first fantasy books I read in middle school. It's called Redwall. It features little mice and ferrets and rodents as the main characters. Fantastic, cool little fantasy story. These have always held a special place in my heart. Louis L'Amour. I read so many of Louis L'Amour books in middle school. I don't even remember the names of those Louis L'Amour books, because he wrote hundreds of them. But I love Louis L'Amour. This is Crossfire Trail, also adapted into an excellent Tom Selleck movie, by the way. He sports a marvelous mustache in that movie, so I've got all kinds of Louis L'Amour over here. Look at this stuff. Woo! Yeah, Louis L'Amour out the wazoo. I love Louis L'Amour. Of course, you can't go wrong with Edgar Rice Burroughs' Princess of Mars, and this is a super cool cover on this one, I think. Princess of Mars, the John Carter series, is awesome. He also wrote Tarzan. Growing up, I read H.G. Wells. I read The War of the Worlds and The Time Machine, and thought they were both just captivating and amazing. Dracula is really great. The Lord of the Flies, not at all like Lord of the Rings, much darker. Man, I read a lot of Steinbeck when I was a kid. Shakespeare, William Shakespeare. When I was in high school, I read, I think, every Shakespeare play and committed a good deal of Shakespeare to memory. In fact, one of my early aspirations was to go to college and study Shakespeare and become like maybe a professor or an instructor on Shakespearean literature. But of course, those things don't pan out. But I really love Shakespeare. So I think I have a pretty diverse influence here. I have a lot of different genres and authors that have influenced me, that have fed into what made me what I am. And I'll admit that when I was younger, I didn't really read a lot of books. I started reading books more in adulthood. I watched a ton of TV, watched a lot of movies. I was a major cinephile, So I watched Batman in the Animated Series, The Rocketeer, Pirates of the Caribbean, anything with a sense of adventure, anything with a sense of danger and excitement. I had a hero, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, anything with an identifiable hero against identifiable evil is what did it for me. So those are some of my favorites.
Rock on, man. Yeah, I mean, hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
That's right.
But anyway, no, great titles there, man. Great names too, for sure. I'm just starting to get introduced to Louis L'Amour. I'm in the process of reading Kilkenny right now, by Louis L'Amour. So that's been a bit of a trip. It's an interesting. He has a very interesting way of writing. It's very different from what I'm used to. But all writers are different from each other. But what is it? Louis L'Amour has a very different style.
Very.
I'm in the process of starting to get used to it. So give me some time, folks. Give me some time. But no, you mentioned some great titles, great authors, some of the best in the world, some legends of their field. So no problems here, no problems about that. I mean, for me, I remember Scholastic book fairs, and I remember giving the catalog to my parents and saying, "Yo, I want you to get me all these books called Animorphs about these group of teenagers who can transform
Yeah.
themselves into animals in a small town that's being overtaken by an alien race that has come to invade Earth." I thought that was one of my favorite trips I took to the Scholastic book fair. And then I had my parents buy me a few Boxcar Children books, if anyone remembers those. That was a mystery
Oh
series about a
yeah,
group of kids, right? Solving mysteries.
those were
There were
fantastic.
there were the Hardy Boys, right? Not Jeff and Matt from the
Hardy Boys.
WWE Hardy Boys, but the Hardy Boys of the detective era. So you got to think about that for a second.
Good stuff. And I
Those,
loved Goosebumps when I was a kid too. I
yep,
forgot to mention Goosebumps.
that's another one. And my parents got me a few of them, and I was terrified for years. Thanks, guys. And then the TV series didn't do me any favors either, because when the TV series dropped on Fox Kids and it was shot in Canada, it's a Canadian distributed series. I thought, wow, this is creepy. I'm probably not going to be able to sleep tonight, so thanks a lot. Appreciate you, Fox Kids, for giving me nightmares. So much so that I was crazy enough to convince my own mother to buy me Goosebumps Episode 1, The Haunted Mask, on VHS. Yeah, the very first
Yeah,
episode.
that's
The
right.
Haunted Mask with, what was her name, Mary Beth or Annabeth? It was one of the
I think it
two.
was Annabeth.
Annabeth,
The
that's
mask
right, yeah.
like possessed her,
Yeah,
right?
that possessed her. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, this is just a small smidge of what Goosebumps is capable of as a property. And I thought, this is creepy stuff, even for a kids show, But it was basically, in other words, Goosebumps was for us what Tales of the Crypt and what was it, Elvira was for adults. This was like a more family friendly to a certain extent. Goosebumps was compared to some of the adult themes that were explored in Tales from the Crypt Keeper, and
Tales from the Crypt.
and exactly, and Elvira, Cassandra Peterson. Let's not forget about her and her her assets, as one might say. So we'll leave that one because
Tracts
I'm
of
not.
land.
Something like that, yeah. So it's so interesting. Um, Good Lord, man. You mentioned Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, gosh, that first movie is so good. It is one of the
Oh, so
best.
good.
Like when you think of adventure and the action adventure genre of filmmaking or even books, that is one of the first things that comes to my mind is Pirates of the Caribbean. Because to me, there are a few other films that came out after it that are still good adventure movies, yes.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, the last like truly great Oscar-worthy adventure movie to me, at least for me, was Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl. That is when we were at our peak. That is when you took a theme park ride that we didn't think could be translated well into a motion picture, and it translated so well that the trailer is good, but when the movie lives up to that trailer's hype and potential, that's what
Oh
makes it
man.
even better. So congrats to the entire cast, congrats to the entire crew who worked on it, and obviously a lot of us were introduced to the young actress known as Keira Knightley in that movie. So thank you, Keira Knightley, because that movie as Elizabeth Turner, my goodness gracious, you are phenomenal in every single scene that you were in. You are phenomenal in every outfit they had you in, whether it's a period piece or not. It
Right.
absolutely works. And then a few years later, she was doing what is it, Pride and Prejudice. So,
Yeah. She has
well
very
done.
diverse range.
Very diverse
Fantastic
range.
actress.
Very diverse range. Very good timing too. Very good timing. So
You
I'll
like
give credit.
pain? Try wearing a corset.
That's
Yeah.
right, and that's in the trailer too. The funny thing is that clip is in the trailer, and then it ends up in the final cut of the movie. And I'm like, great, this is something that actually ends up on the finished product, because sometimes they cut stuff that
Yeah.
was meant to be in the trailer but doesn't end up in the final cut of the film. So you like pain? Try wearing a corset. I'm like, That's how you lay the smackdown on evil's candy ass. So with that being said, and that out of the way, the fact that we love movies and TV shows and all that great stuff and all those books that we were just displayed from Grayson's visual aids, a file on the side of his studio. Grayson, what made you decide to become a writer?
I'll make a long story really short, and which means it's going to be long because I'm long-winded. I've always been interested in stories. Like I said, growing up, I had all these influences. I loved stories. I loved storytelling. I was a theater kid in high school, and a lot of our assignments were to like write short scripts, like short stage plays. In high school, I wrote a lot of short stories just for fun, just to, I never fancied myself a writer at all. It wasn't a passion of mine until much, much later in life. But it was just something I did just because I wanted to tell a story. And I wanted to get into um, theater in some capacity when I was in high school. Like I said, I wanted to go to school and study Shakespeare and maybe end up directing Shakespeare on stage. I was really invested in the idea of just whatever medium, whatever medium, whether it's art, whether it's film, whether it's stage play, whether it's script writing. I've always had this interest in storytelling, and I tried different mediums. Obviously, I didn't get the opportunity to go to college until much later in life. My plans got derailed by some unfortunate family uh, events. Just nothing horrible. Well, it was horrible, but it was nobody's fault. Just things happen. Life happened, and I didn't get to go to school. So you go to work, you start planning a different direction for your life to go. But I still love stories. So I started thinking maybe I can make short films, but I have a problem. I don't have gear. I don't have technical know-how. I don't have actors. I can write the script. So I wrote a few scripts and sent them off to some filmmakers, and they were like, "This is good," but so it never really came to pass. So then I figured I'd learn to draw, and I made a lot of progress, but I plateaued. Like I went from a stick man to a comic booky kind of sketch, but I could not break through a wall. And my thinking was I could do storyboarding, I could do comic books or something. It just did not happen. It didn't happen for me. My skills were limited. So a few years ago, it was on our anniversary. My wife and I went to Medieval Times. Awesome place if you've never been. You eat chicken with your hands. No utensils. You wear a crown. You drink from a goblet. You watch like a couple of knights do this tournament. They're sword fighting and riding horses around, and they're jousting, and dinner theater, glorified dinner theater, and in a castle. And on our way home, we're driving down the interstate, and I tell my wife that was a lot of fun. I've always wanted to do that, but I could tell a better story. And she looked at me and said, "Yes, you can, and I don't understand why you don't." And I said, "Because I don't have the skills." And she said, "My mother and numerous of our friends and me have all told you you should write." And I said, "What am I going to write? I don't know how to write." She said, "Well, you'll never write if you don't start." So when we got home, I thought seriously about it, and within a few weeks, I had a book on my hands. 2 weeks, I had a novella written. Took some time to practice my skill set, wrote numerous short stories, wrote a novel that is not published as of yet, and just recently released my novella, The Prisoner of Ruhak Tower. So that's why I wanted to become a writer, is just because I love stories, and figured out that I have a knack for this, apparently. It was this hidden skill I didn't know I had.
Well, I gotta tell you, the best response I can give you for that is you are so money you don't even know it. Honestly, that's your money, man. By the way, Woody says you're lucky going to Medieval Times like that on a date night. My gosh. Woody, good to see you. Hope everything's well in your neck of the woods, man. If you have any questions, by the way, if you are watching or listening to this right now, Freewheeling Fridays, and you have questions for Grayson Sullivan, the best-selling author, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. I'm building up his ego here. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. And if you're joining us live on the replay, thank you for doing so. We greatly appreciate it. It's funny because if it weren't for the movie The Cable Guy with Jimmy Boy, Jim Carrey, no one would know what Medieval Times is, because that movie introduced Medieval Times to the masses, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. So I see the movie, and then years and years later, my friends and I, we actually went to the mall, and there was a Medieval Times inside this mall here in Maryland. And we went there, and I thought to myself, man, the only thing we're missing is Jim Carrey and Broderick right now. Where are they at? We got the Blue Knight, right? You got the Red Knight. You got the princess, looking for a love interest. You got the king saying, "This is my daughter, promise your hand," or whatever it is. And then you remember what Jim Carrey said, right? The Blue Knight rules. The Red Knight sucks. The big one. You're going down, Red Knight. Going down, down, down. We're not going down. It's just, I got the cable guy stuck in my mind now, by the way.
My
So,
favorite thing about that entire sequence is the waitress is Janine Garofalo, and she's just like
dude,
super annoyed the entire time.
and she's like, dude, we got a lot of tables.
It's amazing.
Wait a minute, there were no utensils in medieval times, but they had Pepsi. Dude, we got a lot of tables.
We got a lot of tables. Her eyes, man. You talk about acting with your eyes. The whole time he's
Yeah.
sitting there doing his spiel, she's just like,
Yeah,
like ready to kill him.
Yeah, she's ready to go. It's fun. But then again, she worked with Ben Stiller before in the coming of age movie. What is it? Reality Bites. So you gotta
right.
factor that in, man. You gotta
And
factor
again
that
in
in.
Mystery Men. Yeah.
Yeah, Mystery Man. That's another unsung hero of a movie right there. That's an underrated gem.
I like it.
I met Invisible Boy himself, Kel Mitchell, at a convention. He signed my Mystery Men DVD, and then he also signed my Good Burger DVD because he was Ed on Good Burger with Keenan and Kel. So, yeah.
Was he invisible when you weren't looking at him?
No, nothing like. He was actually no, he was fine. He was completely visible. It was good to see him too. But don't worry, he was wearing clothing. It wasn't like the scene that went down in Mystery Man. But no, listen. Congrats on your novella. That's great stuff. You got a lot of things in the pipeline. You got some things going on. You got a lot of irons in the fire. It's fantastic, and we're happy for you. Honestly, we truly are. I'm not saying that just to say it. I'm saying it because I mean it. And the other thing is we love supporting other indie artists, other indie writers, and all that kind of jazz. So in case anyone's wondering, hey, Grayson has got a great thing going on, but I know there's a bunch of other people out there, right? Well, we'd like to take this time to share with you some kind folk who got some stuff of their own going on. So Grayson, and the person who may be watching and listening to this, take a look at this. Well, those are images that are going to keep somebody up tonight. So, some great indie creators out there. So definitely check them out when you get a chance. Good folk out there. So, what would you say are some of the for you, Grayson? What are some of the biggest rewards about being a writer?
That's a good question. For me, I think it's definitely the fact that I get to tell a story. You have stories, I don't know if everybody has as active an imagination as I do, but I have very vivid, very cinematic images in my head, and they're usually ridiculous. But I can employ them to be a bit more serious, and typically what I write tends to be a bit more, have a bit more of a dark edge, a lot of, severity to it, maybe. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a dark or writer. I tend to write with sincerity, I think. Not devoid of humor by any means, but that's a rabbit trail. I think that just telling a story is one of the biggest rewards. Having something I can pass on to my son. I was on your writer showcase. I think I mentioned I have a son on the way. In fact, I built his crib tonight. And just being able to pass on to my son, hand him this book that I've written, so that he knows that dad did something really cool, but he can do something really cool. There's nothing stopping him. If he works hard, if he's creative, if he's imaginative, and he's intuitive, then he can do whatever he wants to do. He doesn't have to believe the lie that, you're stuck on whatever trajectory. You can change your stars, as they say on A Knight's Tale. Is it true, Father? Can a man change his stars? Yes, William. I love that movie. Fantastic movie, by the way. But you can change your stars, and that's a cool thing about storytelling too. Is it inspires people to change their stars, which is just a way of saying you can take control. You don't have to settle for anything. Another reward that comes with it is it's an incredible outlet for frustration. Uh, you don't have to carry around the baggage that you pick up all day. You can dump it out on a page and tell a story with it. So if you have a friend that betrays you, well, guess what? Maybe your main character has a friend that betrays him. And in my stories, that usually ends with somebody, getting thrown off a rooftop or burned alive or impaled or beheaded or something horrible. Not always, but definitely if you make me mad, I'll probably put you in my story, and it won't be a fair end for you. There's so many rewards to being a writer, but one of the biggest rewards has been the community that you get to interact with when you become a writer. You get to meet these incredible people. You're invested in the same stuff. You're writers, and you see the world similarly. You think about things in a similar way. You're inspired by similar things, and you get to compare notes on how you actually write. What's your process look like? How do you handle these kinds of conflicts? How do you deal with character? And then, of course, people who read your work, you get to build a relationship with them too. I've had several people read my novella, really enjoyed it, and we get to have these cool conversations. I get to ask them, how did you interpret that? What did you think of that? Did that surprise you? And the look on their face is like, yes, it did. I loved it. So all of those things are incredible rewards for being a writer, and they make it. There's no money in writing, so they make it completely worth it. Those rewards are the thing that keep you going.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you on a lot of those fronts for sure. Passing the torch on to the next generation with, the upcoming birth of your son's coming. So you got a youngling on the way, a young Padawan
Yeah.
learner, and then he's going to become a Jedi this, Jedi that, Jedi this, that. So it's coming, man. It's coming. The Force, if it's the will of the Force, it's good things are coming. Good things are coming. But yeah, really good point. You put out a story, you want to put it together yourself, you can interpret it however you want. It's good stuff, man. There's so much freedom there, so much creative freedom. I totally dig it. So on the flip side of the coin, though, biggest challenges about being a writer. What do you think?
Bravery. Um, it's really intimidating when you pour your heart and soul into something, and you don't have the money to have it published. You don't have the money to have the cover designed or have it edited. So you work up somehow. I did a Kickstarter. Some people scrimp and save. Some people work a side hustle. Some people just pull on favors, but you finally get it ready and prepared, and you send it out into the world, and you just have no idea how it's going to be received until people have it. And that takes a lot of courage because you're sharing something of yourself with people, and rejection hurts. If I wrote this and it was just a polished turd, that would hurt, because I poured myself into it. Another challenge is just I'm writing a novella and have been for a long time now. I wrote a book in 2 weeks. I wrote my novel in 16 days. This novella I've been writing for months and months, and I'm slamming my head against a wall, and I can just come out of the blue. I know writer friends that have had writer's block for years. They want to write. It's inside of them. They have these ideas, but it just won't come through their fingers. So that can be a huge challenge too. And uh, just building the readership that you want. Just getting this into people's hands, the right people's hands, the people will appreciate it. As a self-published author, all of the responsibility falls on your shoulders. Nobody will know about this unless you do the marketing and the promotion for it. And that's a lot of work. And if you don't do it just right, nobody will know about it. And it'll just sit on my shelf and collect dust. Where'd it go? There it is. It'll just sit on my shelf. It'll just sit up there and collect dust next to Nosferatu there. And, the joy of being a writer is knowing that people appreciate what you've done. So just getting it into their hands is a huge challenge that comes with being a writer in our modern context, for sure.
Definitely, definitely. So, in other words, if we take our advice from good old Master Yoda, do or do not. There is no try. So, in the words of Shia LaBeouf, just do it.
Just
Um,
do it.
make your dreams come true. Sorry, that video
Absolutely.
that video pops up sometimes for me in my head or on my feed. I don't know why. Maybe because it's funny, but at the same time, it's motivational too. And he filmed that in front of a green screen, so you can use that and like put it in any movie or TV series, like people have done on social media, and it makes the movie even funnier than it should be. So yeah. I mean, whether it's Emperor Palpatine saying "Do it," or Shia LaBeouf saying "Just do it," it's just come on.
Oh,
I'm just saying,
old
man.
Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, and that creepy, weird voice that he does in Revenge of the Sith. Do it. He's normal for the first 5 minutes of the movie, right? And then he says, Anakin, kill him now. And then he looks at him even deeper and he says, do it. It's just, geez, man, you're a freakish dude. You're a weird
Underrated
dude.
actor.
What?
Underrated
Are
actor.
you talk about Ian McDermott now? Okay.
Hmm
All right.
Underrated, man.
Okay.
People
all right.
sleep on his performances in like Sleepy Hollow. Like,
Yeah.
man, this dude he kills it in everything he's in.
Yep.
It's a shame.
Yep.
It's good that he's known for the Emperor, but it's a shame he's only known for the Emperor.
Right. Well, the other thing is the original voiceover for the Emperor, Clive Revel, passed away this week at the age of 94. Rest in peace to OG
Rest
Emperor
in peace.
Palpatine. He was also the voice of OG Alfred on Batman the Animated
Right.
Series for the first few episodes before they replaced him with the other actor whose name escapes me for the moment. I think it's Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., I want to say.
Yep.
Great actor, wonderful. Both actors brought very good layers to the role. I loved both of them. Clive Revel was doing some conventions here and there outside of the States, and a few of them were, in fact, here in the United States. Unfortunately, I never got around to seeing him. He didn't come to my neck of the woods here in the northeastern part of the U.S. But Clive Revel, thank you for all you've done. R.I.P. Great job as Emperor Palpatine to kick things off with Star Wars back in the 1980s Empire Strikes Back. Also the OG voice of Alfred Pennyworth in Batman the Animated Series with the late great Kevin Conroy. So we're gonna miss you, man. Yeah, Woody just said in the chat here he was Alfred. That's right. Yeah, he was Alfred. We're gonna miss you, man. We're gonna miss you. But you know what? 94, great run, Clive. Great run. Great run. Great run. No shame. There's no shame here with that. So, with that being said, outside of Grayson and I's love for I'm Batman and for Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Anyway, sorry about that. What advice would you give to aspiring writers out there, Grayson?
I think read the kind of stories you want to tell, and don't just read it, but study it. Break down what this writer is doing that's working. Look at their pacing, look at their character, look at how they describe the environments, look at the kind of words they're choosing. Why did they choose those words to describe this? Some writers are more poetic, some are more prosaic, some are a little bit more what we would call dry, but they're very descriptive. Some read more like a textbook, some read more like, a pop song maybe. So look at the kind of writers you gravitate toward and the kind of stories they're telling, and study them, sincerely studying them. I would also tell you that if you want to write dialogue, listen to how people speak. Think about conversations you have. Go on YouTube and listen to interviews. Go pull up Larry King Live or Joe Rogan or somebody, and just listen to the way these conversations are happening, and try to emulate that, and you'll have more natural dialogue. But what I would tell an aspiring writer really is just, if you're not writing, you're not going to be a writer. So start writing. Louis L'Amour. Let's go back to Louis L'Amour for a second. He had great advice for inspiration for writing. He said that don't wait for inspiration. He said his exact words were, water doesn't flow unless the faucet is on. So if you start writing, inspiration will follow. So just start writing and love writing. Don't look at it as work. Look at it as, this is joy. This is something I get to do. I don't look at writing as work. I look at writing as, wow, I'm telling a story. I love telling stories. So if you look at it that way, then it becomes play. I would also tell you to study story structure, study the components of what makes a story a story. Don't just tell me what happened. Tell me why it's happening. Tell me what the motivations of these characters are. Explain to me the conflict. What is a story? for my money, story is conflict. I mean, if you have a story where a guy just wakes up and makes breakfast and he goes to work and he works his job and he comes home and eats dinner and watches TV for an hour and goes to bed, you don't have a story. You're just describing what happened. But if he wakes up and his tire's flat and he has to change his tire and now he's late for work and he gets there and his boss gripes him out, and when he goes to lunch, he spills mustard all over his shirt and he's got an important meeting at 2 o'clock, and then he gets off work and on his way home, his wife calls and says she wants a divorce. You've got a story, right? Because he's up against something. There's something combating him. His goals are constantly being deferred, and he has to overcome to accomplish his goals. So study the components of a story, study pacing, study your favorite writers, and listen to people. Study people. Listen to people. Listen to the way they interact with the world. And I don't think you can go wrong with telling stories. I mean, it's really as simple as just get to work.
Get to work. Just do it.
Just do it.
Which are the magic words here on Freewheeling Fridays on the Madness Entertainment Group. Don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you're joining us live on the replay, thank you so much for doing that. And thank you to Grayson Sullivan, the award-winning author, for being our guest on this. Once again, we're boosting each other's egos, folks. That's what we do around here. On this
Award-winning.
episode. I know, right? On Freewheeling Fridays. Appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, let us know. We love hearing from you all. And thank you to everybody who has chimed in the chat thus far. We appreciate every single one of you for sure. So let's dive into this a little bit here, because now you got me curious. So this bad boy here, the known world of Terra, the prisoner of Ruhak Tower. How did this come about? And if someone's trapped in an elevator for less than 60 seconds and you got to give an elevator pitch, what would it be? But let's start with the first part of this. How did this all come about, this story?
So I told you when I became a writer how my wife encouraged me to do that. The first thing I did was I tried to research and write a traditional hero's journey fantasy story, similar to Lord of the Rings. And what I realized was I was just aping Lord of the Rings. And then I went through this series of disillusion where I'm like, almost every high fantasy story I've ever read is aping Lord of the Rings. And I'll say I'll die on that hill. Aragon is aping Lord of the Rings. Love Aragon. Aping Lord of the Rings. The Wheel of Time, aping Lord of the Rings. And I realized I'm not offering anything special to the genre if I'm just ripping off Tolkien. So I started to study, and in my studying, it became really clear to me that there are all these subgenres of fantasy. And it dawned on me that Conan the Barbarian, which I used to think was just a muscle man in a fur diaper cutting off heads in the desert, because I watched the movies and I was like, they're shallow. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, it's awesome, but he's just cutting off heads in the desert. That's all he's doing this whole movie, is just beheading people in a fur diaper. But it dawned on me. I don't know why it never clicked with me. I knew there were Conan novels and comic books, but it never clicked with me that Conan was born in the pulp era. So I went and looked up a bunch of Conan's pulp stories, his original short stories, and I was floored. I was so transported. I was like, this is Indiana Jones and Yojimbo and the Incredible Hulk TV show rolled up into a sushi roll and delivered to me in a context that is just wonderful. It's an action-adventure story and a fantasy story. It's got the world-building elements. It's got the magic, and presented in a really cool way that I hadn't necessarily thought about before. And it was gritty, and it was atmospheric, and it was exciting. And I was like, put this together with the fact that I grew up with Batman the Animated Series and The Rocketeer, and my dad introduced me to pulp when I was a kid. He introduced me to the Shadow and to Dick Tracy and to Zorro and the Lone Ranger. You put all this together, and it was like lightning struck me. It was like, I'm a sword and sorcery guy. So I just read all the sword and sorcery I could read, from Conan to Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, which I have some Fafhrd here. This is actually comic book form. You can find the short stories for Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, and they're good, but I actually preferred them in comic book form, and this particular one was done by Mike Mignola, who did Hellboy. So the art is fantastic. Princess of Mars is a type of sword and sorcery. It's actually called Sword and Planet because it's sword and sorcery in space. This kind of stuff just captivated me. I just read and read and read, and I sat down and I had this book right behind me written in 2 weeks. And I took some time to practice my craft. Came back to that book last year, rewrote it from the very first word, and now it's out. So that's how Gnome World of Terra came to be. I had an idea for a prison break story, and I was like, this would make a lot of sense in a sword and sorcery context. I don't know of many sword and sorcery books that feature a prison break. And so I sat down, I developed a character, I fleshed out the world as much as I felt like I needed to. And 2 weeks later, I had a sword and sorcery novella on my hands. So that's how that all came to be. I forgot your second question, though.
It's okay. Second part of the question was, you're trapped in an elevator, got to give the elevator pitch. Less than 60 seconds about this best-selling book. What's the elevator pitch going to be?
Trellin of Yulia is a cursed man, and cursed men are dangerous. Actually, I'll just read you the book blurb because that is the elevator pitch. Trellin of Yulia is a cursed man, and cursed men are dangerous. He has traveled the gnome world seeking a way to lift his curse, and so far he has not found what he's looking for. When Trellin arrives in the city of Anchi in the nation of Paraba, he meets a cold reception. The desert nation is unforgiving. Its people have proven untrustworthy, and the locals have no love for foreigners. And now a wealthy stranger offers to lift Trellin's curse for a price, and he must make a choice: seek a solution elsewhere, or risk imprisonment in the Tower of Ruhak, a place from whence no man has ever escaped. Until now.
Until now. No, dude, that is some great stuff. Congratulations to you on the release of that book. As you can see behind me in our studio, we have a copy of it. I'm excited to dive in to read it. And you encouraged me to get The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian. So I got the volume right here. And it said, by the way, what I didn't know about it, notice, I guess, early on when I was in the process of purchasing this book, is that on the bottom here, it says fully illustrated throughout. That's brilliant, because I'm a visual person. I'm a visual person. So when you got illustrations in it, like our good friend Brina Williamson, who's got incredible art skills, by the way. Yeah, see that? Like, that is just, I mean, come on. Yeah, that's pretty boss. That's pretty boss.
Yeah, they should have hired Brina to do this, but these are really good.
Yeah, we're talking about our good friend Brina Williamson, who's a great writer. She's got a story out right now called Marona Grant and the Lost Tomb of Algotha. Am I saying that right? I can't remember. Golgotha. So sorry. I'm so sorry. But yes, it's out. It's available. Check it out. As a matter of fact, Brina and her friend Jonathan are going to be on a special episode of And I Quote on Friday night, April the 4th, to talk about their Kickstarter that's coming up. Next in the beginning of April. So stay tuned, fellas. It's going to be a good one. By the way, Woody says, get her done. That's right. If you're going to write something, just get it done. Get it done. Yes, that's get her done. Just like the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. Get her done, son. All good things. All good things. Fantastic stuff. And by the way, look at this. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but BW, which stands for Brina Williamson, says, I'm glad I popped in here just in time to hear my name drop. Ha, ha, ha. Well, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Brina has her own Funko Pop?
Yes, I did. I'm noticing that. Brina, is it true that you have your own Funko Pop and your dog has been made into a Funko Pop as well? Is that true? Did you get this?
That's freaking amazing.
Is this custom made, Brina? Let us know in the chat, because now you got Grayson and I sitting backstage here, curious. That is a great what do you call it? PTR. That's a great picture there, profile picture. Let's just put it that way.
Yep.
She says, haha, no, it's just AI.
Cheater. Anyway.
That would have been cool if it were, but either way, it's great stuff. It's great stuff. AI.
I'm actually I'm reading Brina's book right now.
Oh yeah, which one is that? Which book is that?
Marona Grant and the Tomb of Golgotha. I have it on my Kindle.
Darn it!
I didn't get to show you, but it's fantastic so far. I'm really, really enjoying it. So go buy Brina's book and also buy my book.
Yeah, that one too. For sure. Once again, we're here with Grayson Sullivan on this episode of Freewheeling Fridays. Don't forget to like and share. And if you have any questions for him or myself, let us know in the comments of the chat. If you're joining this live or on the replay, thank you so much for doing that. With that being said, have there been any? And she says, "Aw, thanks." You're welcome, Brina. You're welcome. And we're going to be talking about your Kickstarter next week. So get excited. Get excited. The Kickstarter is coming. And what do you call it? The perks of being a backer on that campaign, as being promoted on what is it? Brina? Is it Brina Williamson is it Brina _ Williamson on Instagram? I'm forgetting here, but still, The perks that go along with being a backer on that campaign are boss. So don't be surprised if you get hundreds of millions of dollars rolling into that campaign, Brina. And Jonathan. Jonathan is very important to this as well. Let's not diminish the importance of a Victim Digital Productions with Jonathan there. So not forgetting about you, man. Don't worry, he's going to be on too. It'll be a fun conversation, I guarantee it. So my Acres of Movie says, "What are your favorite movie cinemas in the state of Arkansas? Thanks, Hart Stacy." Favorite movie theaters in Arkansas? Jeez,
So
I have no idea.
I live in a place where I'm kind of on the Arkansas-Texas border,
Mm-hmm.
so I can just as easily go to Dallas as I can to Little Rock. And I can safely say that there were very few movie theaters when in Little Rock or in Arkansas that I would actually go to. I would go to Dallas or somewhere in Louisiana maybe way before I'd go anywhere in Arkansas to watch a movie.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All good things. All good things. So my my next question is: have there been any special memories for you from interacting with your fans or your readers, whether you're at events or whether you're interacting with them online through social media or your Substack?
Yeah, I guess, man. What's really cool is, like I said earlier, one of the perks of being a writer is you get to meet other writers and you get to hang out with really, really cool people. So there were some sword and sorcery writers that commented on some things I'd written on my Substack that were really encouraging because these are guys, modern sword and sorcery writers. It's kind of a diminished genre, but it's rebuilding, it's experiencing a renaissance. And it's just getting to know some of these guys and listening to them talk about talk talk shop about the genre, talk shop about writing has been really cool. I don't know how many of them have actually read my book yet, but I've read some of their stuff and it's really good stuff. Another thing is I had a guy out of the blue email me and say, "Hey man, I really like reading some of your short stories. I have a bunch of them for free on my Substack." And he said, "I'd really like to become a writer. What would your advice be?" So being able to just invest in somebody is really cool. But I think right as of this moment, my favorite thing about being having anybody that's read my work and being able to interact with them has been a young lady in our community bought my book. And like she read it, I don't know how she did it, superpower, but she read it in like 45 minutes. And she just like gushed. She's like, "I need to know more. Tell me about this character. How did this happen? What made you think of this? Oh my gosh, it was so good. I just love this. And it was hysterical when this happened. And that was so exciting." And I'm like, calm down. Like, it was just a book. But that was the cool thing was seeing somebody read your work and just get so excited and invested in what you've written. It's not even a long book, it's a novella. It's 9 chapters, it's paper thin. It's something you could read in an afternoon or over the weekend. But she was just so captivated by it and just really enjoyed what she read. And I appreciated so much that I had written something that resonated with her, that thrilled her and made her happy. I think that's probably the best you can hope for. That's been really cool to see.
Oh man, that's awesome. So giddy up. Fantastic stuff. It really, really is. And once again, congratulations on the release of your book. So do you think, I mean, how do I word this? So do you think sword and sorcery has been the genre as a whole when it comes to the books and things of that nature? Do you think sword and sorcery has been kind of in a coma, or maybe it's been dead for a long time, and now someone's starting to, some writers out there are starting to bring it back, and in this case, you being one of them. So do you think sword and sorcery has been dead for a while? Do you think it's just been in a coma and just waiting to be revived? Or do you think sword and sorcery is just now starting to become popular again when it was 20 years ago when Lord of the Rings was coming out?
So that's a loaded question, and if you want a more detailed answer from me, go to my Substack because I wrote a series all about sword and sorcery on there, and it details what it is, where it came from, what happened to it, and why it's experiencing a renaissance. But I'll give you again the short answer, and the short answer is there was a mixture of things that caused sword and sorcery to be, in my opinion, disrespected and to go dormant. And it was not entirely unearned, to be fair. So the guy that created Sword and Sorcery is Robert E. Howard. He created other characters besides Conan the Barbarian. He's famous for Conan, but he also created Solomon Kane. And this is arguably the first Sword and Sorcery character. What he did was he mixed his adventure stories. He didn't want to write fantasy. He wanted to write historical adventure, but he couldn't find anybody that was interested in buying his material. So what he did was he took a cue from his friend H.P. Lovecraft. He took an adventure character and mixed in supernatural horror. And it worked. And it worked so well that he was able to develop other characters. And then we get to Kull, who is arguably the first sword and sorcery story. These are not really sword and sorcery stories, it's the prototype. Kull came along, and Kull was entirely in a fantasy world. It involved all the components that make a good sword and sorcery story. And then from Kull sprang Conan. And this was his most famous and most popular character for a reason. The problem is that a Texan in the 1930s wrote this during the Great Depression. And by the 1970s, when the Conan stories were being pastiched, edited and collected and released as novels, we have the women's movement and we have the Vietnam War. So the violence and the depiction of women was not well received. They didn't care about his context. They cared that the women in these stories tend to be naked damsels in distress or just really awesome warrior chicks. But his depiction of women has always kind of been unappreciated, and not for a poor reason, you know, but you have to, context is key with this stuff. But springing from Conan came all these clonans, if you will, who just doubled down on the amoral nature of their characters. And there's one character that, he just straight up, his hero in the story straight up rapes a woman. So they were going to those lengths in the 70s, and it wasn't appreciated. And then you get to the 80s, sword and sorcery experiences a bit of a boom with the Conan the Barbarian movie, but then you have this slew of really, really lame, poorly produced sword and sorcery movies, chock full of nudity, chock full of excessive violence, like Kill Bill style violence, not there for the story, but the story's there for the violence and the nudity. And it just created a perception of sword and sorcery that it was trashy, that it was not as sophisticated as something like The Lord of the Rings, and that this was basically designed for incels who lived in their mother's basement. The contents being a muscle-bound man in a fur diaper that walks around humping everything he sees and beheading people. And it's not unfair, because that is somewhat what happened. It's not how it started, it's how it went. But now we're experiencing a resurrection of these things, because people that grew up reading Conan, and for the longest time the original pulp stories were not available. You only had the kind of Conan pastiche novels that really weren't great. Now these are available, people are reading them for themselves, and I think people have grown tired of the 24 doorstop novel series. You know, if you write a fantasy book now, it has to be the first part of a 12-part series, and all the books have to be this thick. And I think people are growing tired of that. And there are certainly a lot of writers that are growing tired of that. And people are really craving that action and adventure vibe. Well, like I said earlier, sword and sorcery is more akin to Indiana Jones than it is to something like Brandon Sanderson's fiction. And Brandon Sanderson being the premier fantasy writer these days. So Lord of the Rings is always going to be a staple, but I think people are hungry for the fast pace, the brisk read, the action adventure oriented stories that sword and sorcery offers. And now we have these wonderful sword and sorcery authors like Eric Wagg, Steve Dilks. There are all kinds of anthologies available right now. The most famous and popular, and the guy that's really led the charge, is Howard Andrew Jones. And he was working on a 5-part series called The Lord of a Shattered Land. And it's a collection of little novellas that are sequential, so they build to like a climax. And they're fantastic. But unfortunately, Howard Andrew Jones just passed away. He had a surprise brain tumor, and he was gone in a few months, so he will not finish his series. But he led the charge. He's really reinvigorated the genre, and we're seeing it come back in a really cool, really big way. And you had things along the way like The Witcher. The Witcher is neo sword and sorcery. I would say that Pirates of the Caribbean has a lot of sword and sorcery elements, so it's always been there. It just disappeared for a bit, and it's trying to regain its reputation.
Thanks for coming to Grayson's TED Talk. I'm going to see myself out. We'll see you next week, guys. All right, no. Listen, no, that was great, and I appreciate you explaining that, because I'm new to sword and sorcery. I don't know a whole lot of this stuff. What I do know is that there was a movie that came out many moons ago with James Purefoy as Solomon Kane, and
Excellent movie.
I
Great
freaking
stuff.
loved the movie because we watched it in a film class that I was taking at college at the time. And that was my introduction to that character, right? That was my introduction to some of Robert E. Howard's stuff because I didn't watch any of the Conan movies. I mean, I saw the reboot with Aquaman, Jason Momoa from 2011. Fine, it was okay. I didn't really care for it much. But then when I watched the film in class, I thought to myself, "Wow, this is Solomon Kane is a great character, and James Purefoy is a perfect actor for this. Why aren't there
Yeah.
more movies like this? I would watch the heck out of these." And then they said, "Well, the movie didn't do so well at the box office. It bombed. It didn't make any money for the studio. It got everything. All the plans for the future of it got shelved." But it's out on Blu-ray, and you can find it on DVD. You can find it on streaming services. I know. I think it's actually for free on YouTube right now with ads that you can stream for free. So Solomon Kane is out there, and I encourage anyone who's interested in
Yeah.
learning about the history of sword and sorcery, or even Robert E. Howard's work, to if you're not like into reading the books right now, but you want to watch the movies, watch Solomon Kane, dude. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen, in my opinion. And the other thing is, the book you just held up to the screen for our viewers, Solomon, the Savage Tales of Solomon Kane, is that fully illustrated throughout, like the Conan the Barbarian
Yes, it
is?
is. See here.
Drop it like it's hot, and send me a link to that because you may have found someone who's going to buy that, and that's me. So send me a link to that. I want to know more about this. Slide into those DMs. Do me a favor. Let me know where I can find this bad boy because
Ooh.
Solomon Kane is a very interesting character to me. I like him a lot. Yeah, you see that? Let's take a look at that. Let's put this on the big screen for a second. Look at that. That is some fascinating stuff. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So that's
Every volume of Robert E. Howard, from Solomon Kane to
to
Conan.
Conan. Yeah, Conan.
Each of these Conan volumes, there are 3 volumes of his work on Conan, and each of them
Mhm.
is illustrated by a different dude.
That's great.
So you're gonna get really great artwork.
Hmm.
These include biographical essays on Howard, a lot of letters he wrote to H.P. Lovecraft, maps that he drew
There's another
concerning
one.
his world.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. So I've got a lot of Robert E. Howard. I've read every single one of these. They're wonderful.
Yeah, a little bit of light reading. Anybody? No, I'm just kidding. It's more heavy reading than anything else. Those paperbacks, man, they add up to a lot of pounds. But anyway,
Yeah.
some people here in the chat. Woody is laughing at the fact that you said clonans, not Conans, but clonans.
They're just knockoff barbarians that missed the point of what Howard was trying to do.
Does the movie Masters of the Universe fall into that category with Dolph Lundgren?
I think so. I think
Is
it's a little more kid-friendly.
It is.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's PG from Canon Films. What do you expect? But I actually like Masters of the Universe. I'm one of the 2.5 people in the world who actually enjoy that movie for what it is. So,
Yeah.
yeah, come at me, bro, in the comments. By the way, Brina Williamson has a great question. She says, "It's so cool how quickly you were able to write your novella, Grayson. Got any tips on how you are so productive?" Hmm?
So it's a thanks for the question, Brina. You know, Brina's awesome. If you haven't read her book, you need to, and you need to support her Kickstarter or commission her to do artwork for your book because she's a fellow indie author. We got to plug, and of course my friend Luke Goodish and the good boys on the Mission Adventure Fiction podcast. Ah, those guys are all marvelous writers. To answer your question, I'm a freak. It's a superpower. I mean, I'm not trying to be coy. I didn't know I could write. I didn't know that this was inside of me. And I was just as shocked as anyone that I wrote a whole book in 2 weeks. When I did NaNoWriMo and wrote my novel, I wrote 50,000 words in 16 or 17 days, and it shocked me. I wrote 6,000 words in one sitting one time, and now I try to break it up because that's really just not healthy to do. But I have no idea. It's just I have a very vivid, very active imagination. I will say that this novella is what we call pantsed, which meant that I wrote it as I went. I planned nothing out. I had concepts in my head of where I wanted it to go, but I just kind of typed and saw what came out of me. Everything since then has been plotted out. And plotting has been very, very healthy for me because I don't have to think about what I'm going to write. It's all outlined. So I just have to look at my little beat sheet because I do it in kind of like the note card method. You write out like a paragraph of what you want in this chapter on a note card. I do it, but I do it digitally with a program called Scapple, which is a really great mind mapping software. But I just look at my beat sheet, my outline, and figure out, okay, so this is what I have to write in this chapter. All right, choom, and I'm gone. And a couple hours later, I walk out of my office and I've got 1,500 words, 2,000 words banged out. So it really is just a matter of being excited about what you're writing, being inspired. You of course don't wait for inspiration. Inspiration follows action, so it's just a matter of putting your fingers on the keyboard and telling your fingers what to do. And if they refuse, you either force them or you give them a break and let them recuperate. But I really wish I had a better answer. I really, really do. I'm not trying to be coy. I didn't know I could write this fast, and when I found out that other writers don't write this fast, I was like, sorry. Like, it.
Wow. I mean, coy. I'm not being coy. Yes, Newman, you being coy? Yes, you're being coy. You're being coy. Anyway, that's the Seinfeld thing. Brina says, have superpowers. Got it.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
just have some like green ooze in New York fall on you, and you'll learn to write faster. Or go to space and get a solar flare, and you'll write faster.
Yeah, there's your TMNT.
I'm really sorry if that came across as like unhelpful. I don't have a better answer. I really don't.
Yeah, other words, drop a TMNT or Fantastic Four reference. We'll get it eventually. But yeah, Brina, have superpowers. Got it. All right. I don't have those superpowers. I am in the process of writing this short story that there's no way I could write it as fast as Grayson does. But then again, every writer is different, right? So,
yeah,
dude, more power to you, because for someone, I mean, by the way, everybody has a different schedule. Let me give everyone some context here. All right. I work a 40-hour-a-week job. In the middle of the night, when people are sleeping, I'm working, breaking my back every day. And I come home very tired. I watch a little bit of TV on my tablet, right? I'm having my meal. I'm doing my thing. I'm checking my emails and messages like everyone else does. And then as soon as that's done, I go to sleep at 9, bro. And then I'm asleep for 10 hours a day. And then I get up and have to do it all over again, because that's work. That's life. But then on the weekends, which is what this show and the other shows that we do at Anti-Quote Channel and the Madness Entertainment group, for those of you who are wondering, I mean, listen, more power to anyone who's more productive than I am, because I don't know how you folks do it, which in Grayson's case, he just happens to have superpowers. And then Brina and I are looking at each other and thinking, okay, we don't have superpowers, but we're good at what we do. We just do it on a different schedule. So we could put it that way. Brina, hopefully that answers the question, because I don't have a better answer than what Grayson just gave, because I don't know.
I mean, if it's any consolation, I think Brina is a far better wordsmith than I am. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. Speaking of Brina Williamson, because we mentioned her quite a bit, let's talk about, this is the book we're talking about. So Marina Grant and the Lost Tomb of Golgotha by Brina Williamson. She wrote this, but she also did the illustrations for this book that you see before you right now. And there's a Kickstarter that's going to drop on, I want to say, is it April the 1st, Rena? Or is it April 2nd? I think it's April 1st. But if it's not April 1st, it's definitely April 2nd. It's coming. It's going to be fast. It's going to be furious. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to drop the links here in our show notes on Anti-Quote Channel. So check us out there. Follow me across all forms of social media. Follow Grayson across social media. We'll talk about that here momentarily. But this book, oh my gosh. I mean, not to say, by the way, this isn't a bad thing what I'm about to say here. This is an Indiana Jones type animated series or movie just waiting to happen. And now that it's in the process of being translated into an audio drama series, which is what is part of the Kickstarter that is going to start off next week. And she says, yes, it is in fact April 2nd. So that's April 2nd. Stay tuned. That'll be on Wednesday, right? Wednesday, April the 2nd. It's coming. And we're very excited. I'm excited. Grayson's excited. The people in our Discord are excited about this. And I think you who are watching and listening to this episode of Freewheeling Fridays on Madness Entertainment Group should be excited, because if you're into adventure, if you're into swashbuckling, if you're into treasure hunts, right? If you're into mysticism or whatever it is, this is a book that you should really check out and support the Kickstarter for it to continue its journey into an audio drama series. So there you go. I know the show's supposed to be about Grayson Sullivan over here, but once Brina Williamson walks into our studio, we just have to plug it, right? We have to plug it, because Brina is a member of our family, and we take care of our family. At least I hope we do. I can't speak for everybody, but family is family. Look what they did to my boy. It's just, I mean, we as writers are going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Period. Seriously. Just out of curiosity, outside of Lord of the Rings, outside of Conan the Barbarian, right? What are some of the, if there are any, best sword and sorcery movies that you have seen, or maybe even TV series outside of The Witcher, which is more recent? Anything else besides Witcher?
Movies, TV shows, or
Yeah,
books as
and
well?
yeah, any movies or TV shows that have come out, anything at all.
I think Highlander qualifies as sword and sorcery.
There could be only one. That's right.
There
Yeah.
can be only one, and that's an
hmm
excellent one. Pirates of Dark Water, if you remember that cartoon. There was a cartoon, they never finished it. It came out in the 90s called The Pirates of Dark Water, and it is pure sword and sorcery.
Hmm.
It's excellent. If you remember the Herculoids, that was sword and sorcery.
Oh
Kind of
gosh,
bizarre sword and sorcery, and more
very
psychedelic,
bizarre.
but it was sword and sorcery. Some people would argue that something like Willow is sword and sorcery. I feel like Willow kind of bleeds between different fantasy genres, but there are sword and sorcery components there. Val Kilmer's character being one of them.
What about Legend with Tom Cruise or Labyrinth?
I think Legend definitely qualifies as sword and sorcery. Yeah, I think talking about what sword and sorcery is deserves a little bit of merit too, and maybe that's for some other time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think Legend would qualify.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. That was TC before he was TC Legend Tom Cruise, and it was Mia Sara from Ferris Bueller's Day Off as the
And the
very
wonderful Tim Curry.
yeah, Tim Curry is the face of evil, or the voice of it anyway. Yeah, that was some creepy stuff, right? I think he was auditioning for Hellboy, and he just ended up in a different movie. You know, he looks like he came out of a. I mean, do you see what I'm saying though? He looks like he came out of a Mike Mignola Hellboy comic, which a good friend of ours.
He does.
A good friend of mine, BrianRobin.com, who's an indie comic book writer and artist, is coming out with a book that was to a certain degree inspired by Mike Mignola's character known as Hellboy, and it's called Memoirs of an Angel, The Great Pilgrim, and it's available for pre-order right now if you go to his website, Grayson, BrianRodman.com. So,
talking about Mike Mignola, I gotta throw this back up here because
oh really?
Mike Mignola is just so good. Look at this wonderful artwork.
Oh my goodness! Let me see if we can blow that up. Let's put it on the screen here. There it is.
This is Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. They're this is a comic book version of their stories, and they are a pair of thieves that live in a city called Lankmar, and every day in Lankmar is a nightmare. These guys, they get into all kinds of trouble, but it's just the artwork is absolutely stellar. Look at this screaming guy.
That's creepy.
So good.
That's creepy.
So
he did a DC's Batman by Gaslight.
Yeah. Actually, I have a little Batman by Gaslight here.
I'm Batman. Yeah, that's. I have the Batman by Gaslight paperback from Mike Mignola. I have that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
That is a good one. It's a good story. I like that one actually. So, well done, Mike Mignola. Well done. By the way, favorite Hellboy movie, 1 or 2, which is the Golden Army.
Yeah, it's definitely not David Harbour's Hellboy.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, Hellboy 1 for me.
The original? Okay.
Yeah, Hellboy 2 was very good, but Hellboy 1 takes the cake.
What do you think they could have done with Hellboy 3 if they made one with Ron Perlman and GDT at the helm?
He could have had 2 teenage half-demon children, which would have been really cool.
Yeah, with Selma Blair's character, yeah.
Yeah, and that would have been really cool, and maybe we could have finally given Abe Sapien a little bit of happiness. He's the saddest character in those movies.
Abe Sapien, yeah. Voiced over by, well, in the first one it was David Hyde Pierce. In the second one, I think they replaced him, didn't they? I can't remember. Yeah. Can't remember. Anyone else remember that? I don't know. But no, hey man, listen, it's good stuff. Very, very good. Very, very good to you. So, listen, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank Grayson Sullivan for being our guest on this episode of Freewheeling Fridays. This has been great. Grayson, it's been fun to talk about your journey as a writer, some of the things you got going on, some of the things that have happened to you already, right? And then you got all these new ideas that are just oozing in that twisted little brain of yours. And you're making Brina and I look like fools because of how ridiculously productive you are at your stuff. I mean, no, I'm just kidding, Brina. I'm just kidding. We're all good here. I'm just joshing you. We're joshing everybody here. It's fine. We're all good. But my point is that being productive is not always easy. But if you have a dream about something, you have a passion for something, it drives you. Just keep doing it. Don't stop until it's over. Don't stop until it's finished. So that's the best advice I can give you right there. So Grayson, if someone wants to know more about you or learn more about the genre that is sword and sorcery, because as our good friend Aragorn always taught us, you have my sword, and you have my bow, and my axe. So if someone wants to know more, I had to drop it on you, man. I had to drop it because Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie of all time. So if someone wants to know more about you, purchase a copy of this award-winning book that's blown up the interwebs right here, right now. That's right. Yeah, you go ahead and smile, but I'm telling you, man, you're going places because you're so money you just don't even know it. Where can they follow Grayson Sullivan on social media? Tell us.
You can follow me at Grayson D. Sullivan _author on Instagram. You can also find me on Substack. I'm called Grayson D. Sullivan Storyteller. And you can find me on the Men's Adventure Fiction Discord. Talk to me directly. Pick my brain about why I can write so fast and how it's not actually a superpower. It's just really hard freaking work. That's all it really boils down to, is overactive imagination and hard work. And pure enthusiasm. That's it. So you can find me those places. And obviously, if you would, check out my book. It's on Kindle. It's on paper. It's in paperback. I have plans to put this eventually on Audible. We'll see when we get there. It's not a long book, but it's a really exciting, fun book. And I think you'll enjoy it if you read it. And if you read it and don't enjoy it, then there's something wrong with you, or you should just give it to someone as a gift because they might enjoy it. So
there you go. Good sales tactic, boys. It's all good, man. Listen, productivity is very, very good. And as we've learned in different stages of our lives, hard work pays off in the end. All right. Hard work pays off in the long run. Let's remember that, folks. Remember that. If you got something you want to do, just go out and do it. Have fun with it too, because life's too short to be stressed out and freaking out and mean and nasty and negative all the time. Just be nice to each other. Just be nice. You know, in the words of our good friend Patrick Swayze, be nice, because I want you to be nice until it's time to not be nice. I mean, it's that simple. It's that simple. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the Academy Award-winning film Roadhouse from 1989. You may learn something from Patrick Swayze. Just throwing that out there, right, Grayson? Just throwing that out there. And Woody says, thanks, Grayson. Thank you.
Thanks, Woody.
See, Woody's thanking you. That's there you go, man. We support each other around here because you know why, Grayson? Because indie supports indie. That's what we do in this business. That's what we do. So, Grayson, I'm going to talk to you here again momentarily if you're still awake. So stay with me. Don't go anywhere, buddy. Feel free to get some water. Grab some free hors d'oeuvres that we have in the backstage area of our non-existent physical studio. But my name is Ryan of And I Quote Channel. Follow me across all forms of social media. Simply, where is my finger pointing? There it is. At And I Quote Channel. That's where I talk about movies, TV series, talk about books, comic books, interview some of the best indie creators in the world. If you're interested in being a guest on Freewheeling Fridays, which are Friday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, or And I Quote on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on the And I Quote Channel, follow me on Instagram. Send me a DM. Let me know what's going on. Send me a DM on Facebook. You can find me there. Check us out. Let us know if you want to be on the show. We'll see what we can do for you, because we want to support as many indie creators in the world as we possibly can, because teamwork makes the dream work, folks. Teamwork makes the dream work. But thank you for being a part of this episode. Freewheeling Fridays is once again on Friday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern Time on the Madness Entertainment Group. Yeah. And don't forget to support those who support you. And don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified of when the videos go up or they go live. And if you want to know more about some of the great pieces of programming that the Madness Entertainment Group has to offer, we have this for you. Be safe, be well, take a look at what's in a book, and enjoy your weekend, folks.
On the tube and feel the vibe. Every show you crave right here live. Heroes and villains clash in the night. Madness Comic Network sets it right. Scroll through the list, find what you need. Epic battles and fast-paced speed. From capes to cosmic space delight. Tune in and watch your favorites ignite. On Facebook, share the thrill so grand. On X, the buzz across the land. Madness Comic Network all around. In every episode, joy is found. Uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends catch every twist and every turn. Madness comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness comic brightens days. Hey! New uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends catch every twist and every turn. Madness comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe.